Good morning and welcome back to another Console League extravaganza. It's week 2 of Season 6 and I'm very excited to see exactly how the PlayStation and the Xbox players get on this week. Taco, week 1, it was a nice trying period for these teams and we're going to talk about PlayStation specifically to start off the day. What was the surprise to you? Did Mavericks and OutCold really do as well as we thought they would last week?
I think that for a lot of the teams, this is a slight transitional period into Season 6, so it's not uncommon to see players struggling a little bit trying to figure out where exactly the competitive meta lies. I do think that last week was a great introduction, though, for all of these teams, and we saw about what we expected to see from the teams with a little bit more veteran leadership and those that were a bit newer to the scene.
Well, the one thing to know as well is that just like every other league, it's going to be 13 weeks of play, so 1 week down for these teams on console so far. And we get to have a little look at what we've got coming up today for the whole region. PlayStation 4 Europe, we're going to start off with OutCold Gaming versus Mv3 eSports. Those are the top 2 teams over in Europe right now, OutCold and Mv3. Both won last week. And then Xbox, we'll see Dobbo's Disciples versus the newly reformed team rival a little bit later on. But that's not something we need to discuss right now, as PlayStation 4 and Xbox will continue from North America a little bit later on this afternoon. We'll check in with those 2 regions and see what's going on there. So plenty of action still going on. Still lots of changes, as you can tell. A couple of rosters still moving around. And we expect to see that in the first couple of weeks.
That doesn't surprise me in the slightest, especially seeing that former team rival squad choose to go again with their familiar comrades. And I think that just makes sense because you might not have had a whole lot of success. They might not have really just been meshing as well as they would have liked to in that week 1, even though it was, I think, a rather brief period to give themselves to really test out their new teams. It's still just, sometimes it's hard to run away from that old habit, and I think that those guys are just too familiar with each other, so it makes sense to see this old rival squad come about again. Yeah,
there's a lot of things to learn for Season 6, not just the meta, but obviously your new teammates and how you are going to work out in those games. Let's have a little look, though, at the standings, first of all, going into today, and see exactly where everybody places. At the moment, over in Europe on PlayStation 4, it is Maverick eSports, also known as Mv3, on our standings, and OutCold Gaming with the current lead at the moment. The one difference between the 2 separate, though, is just amount of games played. We move along to the PlayStation North America side of things. You can see Cyclone and Shrimp Gang found victories last week. Big Money and Benedict's both looking for the same.
These are still really important sets, though, for those teams that have already established early leads. Cyclone, OutCold, they're trying to maintain that #1 position. They don't want to have to forfeit it for any reason whatsoever. And starting out with a big 2-0 lead in the record standings, I think it could be substantial for setting the team up throughout the rest of the season.
I think the big talk about those tacos is like by week 3, if you can win your week 3 games and go 3-0, you're looking pretty confident. You know, 13-week season, you beat every team once. It's a nice settle down there. Is there anything that's too bad there? Can you go 0-3 and not feel too bad still?
In a sense, but you're just hopefully learning in each of those set losses. I think that for some of these newer teams, for example, having that little bit of experience in the first few weeks could be really important as far as like progress is concerned, because it gives the team a lot of VODs. It also allows for the teams to ensure that they're able to better function, I think, in the future, because they're just going to understand competitive a little bit more so. They're not going to get the same sort of jitters that you might have experienced in week 1 later on in week 4 and 5.
Well, into week 2 we go then after talking about week 1 so much, and it will be today starting things off. Mavericks up against OutCold Gaming, 2 of the victors of last week. And so this will definitely give us a front runner of the pack on PlayStation Europe here between the 2. I'm not going to go either way of where I think my prediction is going to be of who wins this, but I guess it's picks and bans that are going to be quite important.
Picks and bans have felt like the most important part of competitive play, even still here in Season 6. I know we've only had 1 week to rely on from SML and SEL alike, but it's been interesting to see that things are still pretty heavily driven by the mid-jungle.
Yeah, the mid-jungle positions as well. I mean, we've seen a couple of changes to mid in terms of itemization builds, and I guess the same could be said from jungle. I've seen a lot more Talaria boots in the jungle now. What's the reason for that?
I think a lot of junglers are just starting to realize that even though you are sacrificing a little bit of power in the early game, sometimes it's just better to have that boost of movement speed to get you to the farm a little bit quicker. And for a lot of gods, because of the addition of Crusher as a secondary or third item part of the build, you typically don't even really notice that much missing damage that you would get from the Warrior Tabi.
I guess the MP5 kind of helps out a little bit too as that goes
Yeah.
on too. So soon we'll be into picks and bans, and we'll get through those and see exactly how this works out between the two. Excited to see who gets the first pick. As always, everything's going to be a best of 3 this year for all leagues basically. So we're going to start off with OutCold Gaming with the first pick, first ban. Now, console-specific, Taco, last week we saw a lot of Guan Yu. Obviously, he's one of the ones that have always come from the console scene first and then slowly snuck his way into PC play as well. Is there any other picks or bans we're expecting here?
I'm still thinking that King Arthur is remaining as a heavy solo laner, pick a contention. I think we saw a decent amount of him getting picked and banned alike, and sometimes even teams willingly playing into him. So a lot, I think, is being paid attention towards these warriors because they don't like that early warrior game potential because they're just so flexible. Ninja, King Arthur, Vermont, I think they all kind of offer that same sort of early game pressure.
Naja as well, been played a lot in the support role and spoken about, so no real surprise to see that get banned away when it can jungle too. Bacchus alongside it, so interesting bans, a lot available here. Merlin, Hera, I'm thinking a lot, I'm pretty sure Merlin is available this week too, but it will be the Hera pick straight away. And Hera does bring something to the battlefield in August that can cause a lot of problems. Low cooldown, AoE ultimate that can cause some problems, as well as basically a body blocker and a chase potential.
A heavy siege potential as well coming in through Argus because of that low cooldown like you just mentioned. But I think that Hera is a little bit risky to throw her into the mid lane because she does have a tendency to be a little bit more punishable in that early game period. So I would like to see a really aggressive jungle mid response here from Mavericks, but it seems as though they're prioritizing a possible flex pick here in the Kuzenbo for solo or support, and the Xbalanque, a lot of teams just really valuing that Darkest Night still. Yeah,
Kuz does seem a little bit early there, but I guess if you want to make sure Xbalanque is not going to have any real counter, Kuzenbo counters pretty much every hunter and causes them more problems for the basic attack carries for the most part. But the Bacchus pickup, no real surprise there. More people have started to understand how to deal with this, and I think, well, you see what Mavericks have drafted in response to your Awilix pick here, seeing that one locked in, Bacchus is going to have a hard time, and Batz can struggle a little bit there too.
We've actually seen a decent amount of Awilix in response to all of these Bacchus selections. It's just annoying when your Bacchus having to constantly worry about getting pulled by that gravity surge. So OutCold Gaming, at least whoever is piloting the Bacchus, because there is some possibility for this to be a solo lane Bacchus. I don't think that's outside of the realm possibilities here. I know that some players have already been dabbling around with the likes of solo lane Bacchus, and as absurd as it might seem, the damage that you can acquire through those hybrid builds is so potent in a lot of these team fights.
I think the issue that I'm having with that is the fact that the pressure in the lane is not existent at level 1.
Oh, you would think that, but
right?
you would be surprised when somebody has that much damage mitigation at level 1.
True.
Based off of the way that you now have Chug at level 0. It makes a much bigger difference in that lane.
Do you like the Ares ban from OutCold Gaming there? They're also going to match that with a Geb as well to really focus on the supports, and Maverick are going to respond with the Sylvanus pick. So it looks like this Kuzenbo is going to be in the solo lane now with where it's drafted, although, well, Sylvanus has been tried in the solo lane before, not to great avail though.
Something that I do find a bit odd though from Mavericks is that they must just not want or not have anybody that really enjoys playing RDO. I feel like there was a heavy chance here for them to have just been able to pick up the RDO for themselves over the Sylvanus, so it's interesting that Mavericks would choose to ban him because RDO actually works as a great pick into everything that OutCold have decided to draft up until that Freya.
I was going to say, I do like OutCold's comp overall though. If you look at meta picks, so to speak, over time, I mean, Hera, Bacchus, Freya, all on the same team, and then you round that out with a Batz AoE for no evil and a Bellona Eagles rally. You're looking pretty good.
It's definitely not a draft that I would want to go up against in my ranked games. I'll leave it at that. But Mavericks do have some decent outplay potential here. I think that their early game pressure is where they have to establish their lead.
With the Awilix?
The Awilix and the Raijin. You can never underestimate a Raijin's damage in that level 1 through 4 stage. And so if Mavericks are able to get things going early on, I could definitely see them shutting down this mid to late game composition that OutCold have opted for.
I was going to say, OutCold have a very good mid game. I think their late game not necessarily going to struggle, but Xbalanque gets online too, and the Kuzenbo will cause problems as well. So I'm excited to see how this one plays out. Who are you giving game 1 to?
I really like OutCold's draft.
Well, let's find out how this game goes. I believe it's John Finch and Aggro on the call.
That's exactly who it is, Hindu. Thank you guys for a great job on the desk as we move into game 1 between OutCold and Mv3 eSports. The two 1-0 teams at the top right now of PS4 EU, but only one team can remain. Aggro who, just based on these drafts, do you think has the better shot?
I agree with Taco. I think that OutCold's draft is pretty good, but I do like OhMyJhox as a Willish pick here. And if he can really run the game and put pressure on mrsacx and Kinder Warrior, then I think that Maverick has a really good shot of winning this one.
I expect that we'll be seeing Jox over here buy this duo lane kind of early, right? It's something that we expect from our junglers anyway to be over here, but he has such a chance to punish this mrsacx when he's looking for aggression that it wouldn't make sense not to be over here.
Now, this duo lane pressure is going to be the other thing, though, because you've got a really high pressure god normally in Sylvanus, but a fairly low pressure hunter in Xbalanque, but Just Lion playing Freya. This is the Freya that has had some changes where it's not the big burst off of the one. Instead, you get the 5 shots. So it's a little bit different, but I still assume that this is what we'll see the majority of. OutCold should get the pressure just because mrsacx can take so much punishment, be that front line so easily with his passive, and then just let Freya be the damage and clear by herself.
He's able to move right up to the front of that wave without any issues, and that will be the purple buff invade completed. Cynortas will be able to come back and grab their own red buff, so control of the jungle on the left-hand side in favor of OutCold, even with Yasi getting his own red buff to match what we saw coming from Cynortas. The Hera here in the middle lane, one who can be very strong. We've seen some of her strength already in some of the games from week 1. Cynortas has a lot on his shoulders as well.
Hera is just one of those picks that you could do okay for yourself in the early to mid game. I mean, you have to hit level 5. Before level 5, Hera really can't fight anybody particularly well, but as soon as you hit level 5 and have Argus up, you can take a fight with anybody, and she kind of reminds me of Poseidon in that way. But also like Poseidon, when you don't have your ultimate, you really can't do a whole lot. Whereas a god like Raijin is a little bit different. I feel like Raijin, I can make an impact no matter if I have my ultimate up or not. So Cynortas really has to make that cooldown count. Every time that Argus is up, you can look for a fight, you can look to be aggressive. But as soon as that ultimate is down, you really have to spend some time and try and just play it patiently up until you have your best part of your kit ready.
And doesn't this feel like it's a game of timings and important cooldowns? Because it's the same for Jox, right? We were talking about it in the cast. Yes, they picked this into 2 pretty impactful jumps, and they've got some knockups on their team. But, I mean, the Awilix can only ult once, right? So Jox has to make sure his timing is perfect. And the same for Cynortas. They've got small windows they have to capitalize on.
Also, it's not going to be easy if even when you pull mrsacx necessarily kill him. But Bacchus is the tankiest character in the game, full stop.
Oftentimes he's trying to flop you anyway, right?
Exactly.
Like,
so you might just end up initiating for him. Now, of course, you take away that damage from belly flop and the knockup, and that's where you really have to be using Gravity Surge. You have to maybe wait until mrsacx is jumping in on his own right, looking for an initiation, and then you want to negate that damage, negate that CC with your Gravity Surge. That's the way you have to play it. Otherwise, you're just giving him an initiation, and he still has a way out if he needs it.
This is important, though. This is the second spawn of the purple buff, and this time Jox has made sure that he's here to try and help defend it. I don't think mrsacx recognizes it. He's very far forward. The banish lands, yes, but it's not onto any of the damage dealers, and that means Sax will take a ton of damage. But right now he's waddling his way out. Body blocks are good, but in comes Noon Bots over the wall. mrsacx jumps out, but Suku that much better. Jox finds first blood.
Now Jox has to contest with Just Lion, but Just Lion's running pretty low on mana. Has to switch to that melee stance pretty soon. Knockup's good. Beads won't be good enough. Jose Rito gets that one.
But now Argus wants to join the fray, but I think Cynortas might have thrown himself into a bad part of town. He doesn't have enough. The damage coming through from the Raijin's too much. OhMyJhox gets the kill. That's 3 for Mavericks, and all of a sudden the purple buff invade does not seem worth it.
No, certainly not. A 3 for 0 in favor of Maverick, and that's where you have to use your pressure in the jungle. Kinder Warrior, kind of like Cynortas, not too scary pre-level 5. These are big impact ultimates that OutCold
Ryan, he jumped in like he had Fear No Evil. I thought he was about to run that fight just because of his positioning, and then I was like, oh wait, we're 3 minutes in.
Right.
There's no Fear No Evil here.
This guy's level 3. Kill this guy. But honestly, Kinder Warrior is the only one who doesn't end up getting killed because everyone else on Mv3 is so caught up on killing everyone else on OutCold. I don't love the initial target selection by Mv3. I will say I think the Jox could have just jumped right on top of Just Lion and gotten that kill early on.
Right.
mrsacx had already committed. He's dead to rights in that spot. The only way that doesn't go well is if you only get one member, in my mind. So even though they don't play that as perfectly as possible, they still make the right call, put themselves in the perfect position. Jox is there for the purple buff respawn. You know that OutCold's going to try and play aggressive with their lane pressure, and that was well played in a perfect rotation by the rest of Mv3 as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely what you have to do. You can't just watch your duo lane get waxed all game. You gotta rotate over there. You know they're gonna be there for that second rotation, the purple buff, and that's exactly what they did. Is now we follow along with the solo laners, Berserker Shield coming out here for FataliTyxFire. We might talk about that later as JhoX is nearby, and this might actually be a bit of a bait onto the Bellona, pull off the knock-up, but she goes up and right back down, and the disarm, but now might be in a little bit of trouble in the 1v2. There's no help coming.
Oh, but where's the Feather Step? JhoX really late. I don't even think the damage connected on a FataliTyxFire. Pretty sure he Feather Stepped a minion.
Wow.
And it was almost Lokiberto's fault, or not fault, but it was going to be his fall there with just a little bit more damage. But FataliTyxFire, see, this is why I can never be a solo laner, Finch. I never would have up-downed in that spot.
No.
Anytime a warrior up-downs, I'm like, oh, classic solo laner. This is all they know how to do, but it ends up working out for them.
Now Yasi in some trouble. The belly flop was there, but the belch wasn't a perfect timing going up to the Taiko drums and gets away from Fear No Evil. That's about as well as you can ask a Raijin to play that. That's now 2 players who have survived the 1v2.
That was really nicely done by Yasi. Good understanding that he knows he's going to get Fear No Evil. His beads were down. Maybe could have saved those for a little bit of a better time, knowing that he was going to be able to jump away before that stun came out. But overall, I think he played that nearly perfectly. That was clean.
And they put the Fear No Evil, we'll hold our thought on that one, as jumping in as mrsacx. This time just trying to defend his buff, but they've got Cynortas nearby. But with JhoX on the Suku, I don't think anything more will come from it. But to go back to the play with Yasi, right at the tail end of the belch, which would have been the stun, Kinder drops the ultimate. So any kind of CC immunity would have gotten him away from both of them all at once because of how they were chained together. That's exactly what Yasi ended up doing. And then the fear as well, to make sure that there's distance between himself and Kinder Warrior. Even though he's CC immune doesn't mean he's damage immune, and would have certainly fallen with a little bit more damage from Kinder Warrior. But good presence of mind there from Yasi, who's in a pretty good spot, a little bit behind the XP per minute to Cynortas, which is a bit surprising considering that Yasi had the assist on Cynortas' death, but still playing very well up until this point. And Banish is a good ability. It's just lying. Just shows it off a little bit here in the duo lane. Go out on a limb next time. Why don't you? Yeah, that's me. You know, just making brave calls here on the mic. Yeah. But I mentioned the Berserker Shield coming out from FataliTyxFire earlier because it feels like we don't see it as much. It was kind of this item that when it first came out we thought was going to be the key for these auto attack warriors to start just running the table. And it really it maybe for like a little while, but it really wasn't quite that. And I don't even think it's what saved FataliTyxFire so much. It was really a lot of good ability usage in that fight that turned things around for him in the 1v2. So we'll see if we can get some more value out of it later on. This is just the I want to stay aggressive and I don't think you can kill me at this point in the game sort of build. And you know what? I can't disagree with him. I don't think there's any way that Lokiberto ends up killing him in that 1v1 even without any magical protection. I don't love the Warrior Tabi though. It doesn't make much sense. You're building attack speed with Berserkers. Get Ninja Tabi. Beads and ultimate available here for Just Line. He's going to use the ultimate to go back in and pair it with the Fear No Evil. Beads allows JhoX to reposition, but actually gets stunned by the ultimate does Kinder Warrior, and that's enough for JhoX to reposition. They trade out abilities, but no one falls. But that is Beads used by both JhoX or not by Lion. He used his ultimate. Yeah, Lion was able to hold on to his. I don't love the lack of gravity surge there. That was a really nice knockup by JhoX, and Kinder Warrior's low enough that he has to use Purification Beads. He has to respect it in that position. Well, now, this line might be a little bit more trouble. There's 4 members here, but they want the purple buff more than they want the life of the Freya. Pull into the root for mrsacx, but now JhoX is stuck in a bad spot. Cynortas dunks on him. Jose Reano might be in some trouble as well, but mrsacx has to flee. That should make it 1-for-0. That was a really nice Taiko drums by Yasi. Did plenty of damage down that corridor, but I don't know what the thought process there was for JhoX. I mean, he ends up getting knocked up, doesn't Feather Step at all. Could have used it to secure the buff, could have used it to immune the damage and knock up. Had a lot of different options in order to use Feather Step, didn't use any of them. As well as committing to that, I mean, they see them coming, and he ends up backing up a little bit, and then goes, oh, I'll just try and secure the buff, and pulls it deeper into the buff camp, which really just guarantees his death. I don't love that thought process. So finally, something in the game going a little bit in favor of OutCold Gaming. I do want to make sure we point out, though, that Jose Reito has gone with the first item, Relic Dagger. It's not something that I see a whole lot anymore, but it's interesting. And it's Sprint, right, as his Relic? It's not even a particularly rare one. I guess it's sprints that he wants up as often as possible. We've talked a lot about the Boots 1 start and how it can feel kind of bad sometimes because it's 500 gold for, like, no movement, for a little bit of movement speed. But I don't know about Relic Dagger. What are your thoughts here? Yeah, I don't know. I think Boots are in a really good spot right now. I think that Reinforced in particular, if you want to get tanky early on, that's the best way to do it. And especially against what OutCold has, it's not a ton of dots, but there's enough to make me warrant
a tank boots purchase here, especially when you factor in that Divine Shroud damage coming from Argus, from Cynortas. That'll stack up your boots really quickly. Just Lion, he's going to have multiple procs if he's hitting you with the 2 and the 1. Those will stack it up. The Belch from mrsacx, that stacks it up. It's an interesting idea. He's getting plenty of movement speed from Relic Dagger and that Adventurer's Blade. This will probably be a Winged Blade, I'd imagine. Get himself some slow immunity. That'll help up against the Bacchus, but overall, I'm not in love with it. I think that I would rather see the tank boots early on here for Jose.
It's interesting. They are some relatively cheap items in this tree. Maybe that's the idea, to try and get like a lot of health, which could be pretty strong early on against whatever damage sources you're going up against to keep you tanky. And then later on, he'll start building into some proper defense. As Wrath of Terra comes out, they want mrsacx right into the Tycho drums as well, trying to pull him back in. But he gets the flop on the back end. No more punish though. But the ultimate from the Xbalanque is enough to slow down mrsacx. He's low, but not quite dead. And there's the Fear No Evil.
JhoX just couldn't quite find it, but Kinder Warrior now has put himself in a horrible position. One more hit again. Another person escapes, but kill, it's JhoX over the wall.
He was looking for, I think he was looking for the jump initially and ends up settling for the shot over the wall. Now comes Just Lion in aggressively. mrsacx jumps in. I think he's given his life away on a silver platter. I don't understand why that was the decision, but another kill for JhoX.
Oh, Just Lion has to use Valkyrie's discretion, and now he's in a world of hurt. Good, nice little polymorph there by Cynortas just to keep JhoX at bay. There's still 4 members here for Mv3. They aren't healthy, but they do have that Sylvanus heal. They could go Gold Fury here.
They absolutely could. It looks like they want to force a fight. That pulls nuts. That forced out the beads from Cynortas. And Poison Darts. This is OhMy's best one to go aggressive and confident in his accuracy. Takes down the Hera underneath the tier 1.
That was beautiful. And you could go gold, but you could also just kill the mid laner in that position. And that's exactly what Jose decides to do. That extra movement speed from his build, not hurting him in that position. Beautiful pull. I still feel like Mv3 gets more from Gold Fury there, though. I mean, the kill in mid lane, yes, you get the beads out from Cynortas. If they can kill Cynortas again before those beads come up, then I'll concede that might end up being the better call in the long run. But objectives over kills, that's always what gets you ahead. Even with a 6-1 kill lead, Mv3 is only up 600 gold, only up 2,000 experience. This isn't enough to warrant a big lead or a big play like you're way ahead, because you aren't at this point, even when you look like it in the kill department.
Yeah, kills aren't the loot, right? Kills is like the key that lets you open the chest.
Right.
And so you have to use that to then go get the loot, but not in this case. That's not what we saw here, right? It was, they had a chance for a pick, they took it, and then they just fall back. So it certainly doesn't hurt them, but maybe they could have got a little bit more. And looks like they'll use this as their opportunity. Maverick want to move into the jungle. And remember, Cynortas has no beads. They just forced him. He's a perfect target. Wrath of Terra knocks him up. Already half health, already gone. That means Tycho drums can turn perfectly towards mrsacx. Fear No Evil is good to create some space, but Yasi wants more.
JhoX so low. FataliTyxFire should be able to get him, but he's going to get rooted and just peeled away. Now he's a bit distracted. Yasi already got one. Nice feather step. Gets JhoX out of the damage range from Just Lion, but FataliTyxFire is doing pretty good work.
A chance maybe to clean up. The up down only hits 2 and not the low health target I think he wants, but Yasi still stuck in between everybody. JhoX wants to come back in to help clean. He certainly will. A killing spree for the Awilix, and somehow Maverick turned that one into a 4-for-1 overall.
Man, pretty good Fear No Evil there from Kinder Warrior. Nearly turned that fight in OutCold's favor, but Yasi is just doing work right now on this Raijin. Those Tycho drums have been really, really impactful, and that's where maybe I could eat my words a little bit in the mid lane. That kill on the Cynortas ends up being pretty impactful, but it wasn't the big wombo combo. It wasn't the Sylvanus ult straight into Gravity Surge. They didn't even use Gravity Surge on the Cynortas because he was so dead in that spot. Really good rotation in from both solo laners, because that it guarantees the early kill for Mv3, having Kuzenbo there, and then FataliTyxFire is the only one who makes OutCold get on the board in that fight.
And I think the fight just must be a lot easier when you never have to worry about Argus, right? When Hera dies at the very beginning of it, and that's off recognition that they pulled those beads in the last engage in the middle lane off a sick pull from Jose. And Jose, who's been making great plays all game, does it again as he got the 1v1. Just Lion. Oh, I lied. It is absolutely not a 1v1. The whole squad's here, and Yasi gets yet another kill.
Beast is beasting right now, man. He's playing so aggressively, and I love watching it. I think that's exactly the way you want to play this matchup. If you can get a slight lead, you have to keep pressing it.
Gold Fury is going to be the name of the game for Maverick, and I think they're exactly right. mrsacx doing a little bit too much walking forward, but now he's stunned JhoX in the way of the Hera damage. Argus doesn't quite hit or something, but JhoX hits away. They will grab the Gold Fury on the back end, and now mrsacx in trouble. Fear No Evil good, though.
Warrior is able to zone some people, but not Beast. Again, gets another cleanup kill. Kinder Warrior over the wall, just able to outrange those Tycho drum shots. But he's still pretty low. So is Beast, and Argus gets the killing blow. Cynortas getting another one.
Dude, Argus kind of slaps, doesn't he?
He really does, man.
As he puts the work in, able to find one last kill to clean up. I think that was Beast that ends up falling on the back end of it. Maverick do, of course, get the Gold Fury in that fight, so that's certainly nice for them. But they end up losing a couple kills on the back end of it. I wonder if JhoX doesn't go a little bit too far forward maybe in that Gold Fury fight. Definitely,
especially when you've got Darkest of Nights. I mean, you're zoning away OutCold so easily just with use of that X-Ball ultimate. No reason to put yourself in harm's way. Also, JhoX has been really hesitant on using Gravity Surge in this game. He's been just out of range a couple times. On that last fight in particular, mrsacx jumps into red buff. If JhoX is able to get a little bit closer and just Gravity Surge him back before that Gold Fury even gets pulled, then there's no way OutCold even thinks about contesting in that position. So just something to be aware of. I think that JhoX's ultimates have been pretty good in some spots and also a little bit lacking in others.
Yeah, a lot I think to keep their eyes on is Pyromancer should go to OutCold. Lokiberto is
close
there, and OutCold just barely are able to secure it, so they will back off on the back end of that one. But I'm fascinated with Jose Rayido's build right now, and I want to go back to it. Even looks like there might be a skirmish in mid as mrsacx jumps in. That sports out the Argus right away. Yasi in trouble. Can't even get Thunder Crash off. He will fall.
Just too greedy with the relics. So if you get jumped on like that, and when I said it earlier, you don't really need the beads right away, but that's because there wasn't an Argus available in that last fight. It was a Fear No Evil and just slower CC that would have been coming at Yasi. In that position, you have to respect the chain CC, and that's exactly what happens to him. Knock up into another knock up, which guarantees the stun damage, which guarantees Intoxicate. That's just a little bit too much. Good follow-up by Cynortas, but it's all set up by mrsacx.
It's the way they have to play it. These two supports have been big difference makers in how these engagements go so far, particularly Jose Rayido. mrsacx has been the difference maker insofar as he hasn't been able to find enough oftentimes in these engagements. He's just kind of a punching bag for damage. But I have to talk about this Sylvanus build. I don't think he wants boots at all. It's double movement speed first item with the Relic Dagger and the Wing Blade, and now he's looking for some magic defense. Boots are not an object.
But again, he's using 2 item slots. I know they're cheap, but it's still 2 item slots to get a lot of what you would have gotten early on. Now, he's got a ton of health right now.
Yes.
You definitely wouldn't have this much health with the reinforced shoes right away. He's already at 2,400. That is absurd at 17 minutes in. But eventually, OutCold's going to be able to chew through that HP. That won't be too much of a deterrent
either. It can't happen, right, in this game because
that's
it's
true.
the Freya. I wonder if that's the idea, that there's no hunter who can build into the best way to punish.
But they can get Soul Reaver. And
yeah,
Soul Reaver
exactly
punishes you pretty well anyways. I'm shocked that there's no Divine Ruin quite yet. Cynortas feels like he needs that helm, but I don't know. I feel like you have to go at first if you're going to pick it up, then go into Divine Ruin.
The Maverick want to try and brute force it as a 3-man stun comes out right into the ultimate from Kinder Warrior. It's great, but mrsacx the one that finds OhMyJhox Beast first. Over the wall, though, goes JhoX. He hunts down Kinder Warrior, and they want to make Jose Rayido the next target, but look at all the HP keeping him alive, even with the shots coming from the sky.
But FataliTyxFire, no! Okay, Scourge finally able to get it. JhoX knocked up and knocked down. Cynortas able to get the shutdown onto the enemy jungler, and that was just Lokiberto gifting OutCold a fight. You don't push a Bellona into your whole team when she's full health. You just don't do it. FataliTyxFire takes perfect advantage and gets a beautiful Eagles rally right in the middle of the team fight. Poor Beast had to use both relics right away. He had to try and dash away. He was dead to rights right away. Yasi got another really good Tycho drums off, but it still wasn't enough.
You also just can't group against this comp. Not like that.
No.
Around the tier 1 tower. I mean, Argus, Fear No Evil, mrsacx, and you saw the 3-man stun from FataliTyxFire, right? I mean, it's too many abilities that get multiple times better the more people that are within them, right? The more value they can get out from it. You just can't give that kind of positioning advantage to OutCold at the start of a fight.
Exactly, especially with Eagles Rally, because Eagles Rally makes all of the things that you were talking about, well, not all of them, but mostly Fear No Evil, a lot better right away because you get that physical power buff as soon as you're in it. Plus, you're giving everyone those protections. And I think that is something that people really forget about Eagles Rally and how good that part of it is.
Yasi has to use both ultimates immediately as Kinder Warrior only trades an absurdly low cooldown ult for the privilege to strip all that away from Yasi. And remember, Yasi's been kind of the flag bearer for Maverick, I would say, so far. He's certainly the catalyst of what's made them look so strong. So weakening him is critical. They're going to go right into the primal.
This is perfect. You already forced the beads in the mid laner. You know that Jose Rito's ultimate is down. This is beautiful.
Well, Jose Rito wants to come in and try and stop them from doing this. He has JhoX nearby for support. The banish is just that strong. That's on a Hunter, by the way. OutCold Gaming are able to secure the Primal Fury. Boy, about the fight on the back end. Already, OhMy's best ultimate is down, so they won't have the Fear No Evil.
Loki's going in, and he's looking for something. Watery Grave will do a pretty good job of annoying the opposition, but that's all it'll do for the moment. Still has a push, but Cynortas still has Divine Shroud.
That's Tycho Drums forced out as JhoX trying to 1v1 just Lion, and unfortunately will bite off more than he can chew, but now he's baiting him a little bit too far forward, and the rest of Maverick can come in. Remember, there's no tier 1 here, but without looping around, he should be okay. That's Primal, goes to OutCold, and they make their way out.
Really, really good situational awareness from OutCold to understand that it looks like it could be a good fight. You know, Lokiberto's pretty overextended, but you never want to fight after an objective like that. Even unless Yassi's going to get in there and really commit to the fight, that is going to be your target. Otherwise, no one else is really worth your time. And OutCold have a really good, whoever the shot caller is, really, it seemed to rein them in pretty well there. That's well done. Get the objective and get out.
And now OutCold have turned things back around. A back-and-forth match here between these two, favoring OutCold now just at this moment. But it's still so close to the 20-minute mark. They've somehow brought this back to parity. But look at Maverick, just like you were asking for, we are seeing that Soul Reaver there for Yassi now to try and punch, or rather, it wouldn't help, it's on the high side of Jose Rito. We want to see it from Cynortas, or maybe from just Lion to try and punish all this health. They do have the anti-heal, though, right? Brawler's there, Divine Ruin to try and slow down Pestilence as well. But they do need somebody to try and punish this high HP coming up from Rito. He also has the Heartward.
But now look at Cynortas. He's going for an Obsidian Shard right after this, it looks like. This is where you put yourself behind the 8-ball a little bit. You need so many things as a mid laner that, look, the Celestial Legion Helm in its old iteration bought nearly every game, as it should have been. But in the current iteration, I think it's a specialization item, which is a much healthier spot for it. Yes, you can really use it in certain matchups where you're going to get dove by the enemy hunter a lot, or dove by the enemy jungler a lot if they're physical. But Cynortas was in a fairly okay spot by the time he picked that up, and it just delays the rest of his build so much. If that was a Divine Ruin right after his boots, that could have been a Soul Reaver right now, and then builds an Obsidian Shard in the 5th item slot as it is. Now he's going to have to wait until 6th item to get the Soul Reaver, and that just seems pretty late.
There's no Aegis here for Yassi. They should have waited a little while longer to start this fight. I was watching the Relic timer. He is able to make it to the back end, so now Tycho Drums can do its work. But Argus comes into 3 yet again. Just Lion finds OhMy's beast. Cynortas gets another. They got to stop grouping up for the Argus because he's dunking in.
So is FataliTyxFire. He cleans up Yassi, who was relicless on the backside. Jose Rito has movement speed and has some health, but I don't think he's got enough of either one in order to get away in this spot.
Yeah, that's what we call a deicide here in the business. Cynortas cleans up the final kill, and Fire Giant all day long. Remember, the Primal is the one they grabbed in the last fight, too, so even a little bit more damage they'll be able to do. We're not quite crossed the 25-minute threshold, so it's not going to be the enhanced version, but I think that they'll be okay with this one.
I would assume so, yes. And you called it, Finch. I mean, there's just too much grouping going on from Maverick in this game. They're just grouping up for great AoE abilities. And that's one of the things that I think Hera herself doesn't get enough credit for, is that all this talk, especially when she first came out, everyone's saying, oh, you know, it's hard to confirm her 1 damage, which is true. It's hard to hit her 2 sometimes because it's so slow at longer ranges, and that's true. But she has an AoE knockup as a mage, and it's near instant. It is really, really fast. And it just blew my mind that so many people were undervaluing that part of the kit. And I think that people still don't really understand how strong that can be at times. And Cynortas is really putting on a show. This is the display. This is the proof of concept that it is really strong whenever you can consistently hit these knockups. No one can group around a Hera, because if you do, you're going to get punished for it.
Yeah, if I had told you before this game started that Raijin ran the early to mid game, but then Hera came online in the tail end of the mid game into late game, would you have doubted that as the description of how the game went? Because that's exactly what we're seeing here. Really, Yassi was such a problem early on, but I think they took that fight a little bit too soon, let him get both those relics up earlier in the fight, and they were just a little bit too grouped for Maverick for me.
And now, if you're a Maverick, what do you do? I mean, JhoX is playing in Awilix, and Awilix is so bad from behind because everyone's running at you and facing you. You want Awilix to be ahead because then people are going to turn around and run away from you, and then you get your knockup, your pull works. That's the whole kit's designed in that way. When they're running at you, she's half a character, it feels like. So
sure.
Now Maverick is basically neutered in what they were doing, which is trying to chase them down, knock up, especially if you look at your targets that you wanted to pull. mrsacx is way too tanky. You can't initiate for him now with Gravity Surge. And Kinder Warrior has beads and a Magi's Cloak. How are you pulling him at this point? This Awilix pick did not do enough in the early game. Yes, JhoX got ahead. He's still ahead in XP up until this point. But look at the player damage charts. Both junglers are 3rd and 4th from the bottom overall, but at least Kinder Warrior is bringing that level of control from Fear No Evil, whereas JhoX really can't.
Yeah, that's exactly the difference. One of them has one of the best teamfight ultimates in the game, right? Like on top 3 or top 5 ultimates that you could have if you're having a team fight. So right now it certainly seems to be favoring Kinder Warrior, the trades they're having as they grab the last tier 2 tower remaining on the map and they head back to the regular old gold Fury. I imagine we'll see the Oni then on the next spawn. We'll certainly get a chance. No, looks like Primal probably again, but they'll settle for the gold to try and keep things going. Maverick got to find some kind of way to slow this bleeding down, though, Ryan. I mean, it feels like as soon as he got to the mid-game, things have gotten out of control for him. Now that these fights are grouped and they're not the picks they excelled at early on, how do they slow this down?
You really look at Yasi if you're on Maverick to try and get just a big poke right off the bat. Let someone stand around that Phoenix, and you're defending Phoenixes at this point. You're not stepping outside of that range for really any reason for the rest of the game unless you're going for a winning push. But you sit around that Phoenix, you let Yasi poke someone out, but Yasi has to stay safe. He has to stay far enough back where he can get a little bit of poke damage but not get flopped on by mrsacx, and that can be really, really hard to do. You have to find your spots really well, but if Yasi can get another big Tycho drums off, now he has Obsidian Shards, so he's doing enough damage to FataliTyxFire and a mrsacx. You really have to look at him to make a big play, because it can't be JhoX. He's playing in the Awilix in a late game situation, and especially when you're getting siege on, that can be very difficult for you. It could be Beast. Beast has had a pretty good game thus far.
Yeah.
These last few team fights have been tough because OutCold have really put their money into focusing him out. But if he can try and pop off in one of these team fights, maybe we could see Maverick make a comeback.
He still has a big power spike coming, too, in terms of this Deathbringer once he gets that finished. So that certainly could be something for Maverick to try and play around. As the build continues to be cheap from Jose Reyudo, I have to keep checking in on it. Hardward into the Lotus Crown. And it's interesting, right? He does have 4 items completed. They are all relatively cheap. They do give him a surprising amount of tankiness. The Lotus Crown, once you heal, gives us extra prots too. I just don't... He's not being blown up a lot. He's 1 and 2, so maybe it's working for him.
Could be. I don't know. I still feel like the tank boots is the better option in this game in particular, but with the Relic Dagger especially, you want the Relic Dagger in a composition where you want to be consistently using your relics every single fight and using them early and using them aggressively, because you want to take advantage of that significantly lower cooldown. I like Relic Dagger on characters with Blink.
Sunder, something like that, right? Where you
Cursed Ankh, where you need it, or Phantom. You need it every fight or else you're going to lose. I don't feel like the whole fight teeters on the edge of, did I get my sprint and shell off this fight? Will that make a huge difference? Of course it will. That's why you buy the relics. That's why you use them. But it's not always a make or break, and that's why I don't love the Relic Dagger here.
You definitely won't complain about having some extra shells and sprints or more than normal. I agree, but you're right. You'd think that if you make this commitment build-wise, you'd commit into even more impactful relics. As OutCold now positioning aggressively around the Fire Giant, the enhanced version this time. You can tell by his telltale glow. Pyromancer up as well if they want to start there, but it looks like Maverick, despite being down 14,000 or so gold, absolutely want to be here for the Fire Giant this time. They're not going to give it up for free.
I don't mind this idea to at least flirt with the enemy team around Fire Giant. Maybe they overcommit, maybe we can poke them out a little bit. But as soon as they want to take a fight, unless the fight opening is flawless for you, you have to give it up, because you're down by so much gold. Your XP is okay, but the gold, you're losing so much of it that I feel like trying to take an even fight is going to turn out poorly.
Fire Giant pulled. It's just Cynortas on it for now. Deathbringer is going to be finished for OhMyJhox best, and everyone has their relics. But it's Loki who takes a ton of poke to start it, and he's gone. A rampage for Cynortas, and already that's going to be the ultimate down for the Xbalanque. Fear No Evil comes through and catches 2, forces Yasi right into the Tycho drums. It does control Fatality and allows him to get away from Argus, but here going to keep right on chasing. Look at him hunting him down.
Yasi still has that Aegis, and he's going to need it. Jose uses Sprint just for himself to try and get away. Yasi trying to turn and burn, but FataliTyxFire able to take him down.
Was that on purpose? Yassi went kind of Ultra Instinct there, didn't he? And just like sidestepped the bludgeon, just barely. I like it. Almost able to stay alive, at least forces the overcommit from FataliTyxFire. But you're feeling good right now if you're Maverick, because yes, it was 2 for 1, but you didn't lose the FG.
Not yet. Not yet. And you know what? Maybe they won't right this moment, because Kinder Warrior is fairly low. And Cynortas is going to head back to Bacchus as well. So yeah, if you're Maverick, that's absolutely a win. You're just looking for time at this point for MV3. You just want to sit around, get that gold spooling, pick up your lanes, pick up your lane buffs whenever you can, and just wait until you get to 6 items and everyone's level 20. And at that point, the only difference will be some power potions. I mean, it looks like Cynortas already has a power pot, which is really, really scary, because now he's sitting at 30% CDR and has a Rod of Tahuti as if he wasn't doing enough damage already.
OutCold now going to slow the pace down a bit, exactly what MV3 are looking for. Going to give him a little bit more time to try and catch back up. And I wonder how much of that fight is just FataliTyxFire chasing a little bit too far on the end of that fight. Did he really need to go all the way to the Phoenix to make sure that Yassi died? It is nice that he can kill him. If he could have gotten that Aegis timer, even if he didn't kill him, that would have been nice too, so it wouldn't be up for this next fight around the FG. But it has slowed this game down.
FataliTyxFire pushed, and this time not into the entirety of the enemy team. Knock up, Gravity Surge, Tycho drums as well. That is a lot of ultimates that they just used, though, to kill FataliTyxFire. Now there are 3 ultimates down. OutCold could still potentially take a fight.
Well, Loki, despite all the damage he's taking, is pushing forward. Even gets tagged by the FG a little bit. And OutCold are slowing down. They no longer have the Bellona to help them out in this engagement. They land the Polymorph from nearly max range and the stun. And that's mrsacx by himself, but no one's there to help Kinder, who drops the ultimate on a solo target in OhMyJhox Beast, able to find mrsacx.
And Jock still had a Magi's Cloak, so he didn't even need to use beads in response to that ultimate. He's looking like he's in a pretty good spot at this point. Now all of a sudden MV3 are in a commanding position to take a Fire Giant. They're on a 5v3 power play.
Yeah, this happened kind of quickly too. OutCold really never had any options. Once FataliTyxFire, it felt like ended up taking that spill on his own. mrsacx over-aggressed, and now here's just Lion in a bit of trouble. That's his ultimate forced out and both of his relics, and Loki's gonna stay right here on him and continue to cause problems.
Absolutely.
You can't fight through this Reflect.
No, but Sumo Slam absorbed there by Kinder Warrior. Just Lion still putting in some shots, but Watery Grave comes up and Lokiberto shocks him down.
That is going to take him down. OhMyJhox Beast wants to try and find this tier 2 tower, but can't. Almost dies and does to the Hera. I think he got hit by the tower there as well. Unfortunate as Yassi comes back in and finds Kinder Warrior a bit sloppy on the back end of this engagement.
Yeah, on both sides, both teams playing it pretty sloppily, but these are the growing pains. You know, it takes some time to get everything in order in these late game team fights, and these teams on the PS4 side just don't have that competitive experience quite yet.
This is the part of the game where I think it shows, too.
Right, exactly.
Where it would show, I guess.
Yes, where you don't always get to these late game stalemate situations. It's hard to practice for these pretty consistently. But we're here, and this is what Maverick needed. Now, this game is almost entirely even.
Yes.
Almost 6 items on everybody on MV3. Looks like Jose Reito is actually going to sell his Guardian's Blessing, which you really never want to do until you have that big 6th item, because you're losing gold by doing this. You're slowing down your option for, very little in terms of your tier 1. A little bit of health there for that uncommon staff. I think that's going to be a Rod of Asclepius. That's what I'd hope it's going to be.
He must have finished Breastplate up with that gold or something, right? Or else he wouldn't have sold it.
I don't think so, because you're selling it for 500. That uncommon staff is 650.
You're exactly right. Yeah, I don't know then.
Yeah, that's not necessarily the call. That spot, great pull on the Just Lion, but Just Lion doesn't have the option of using a relic defensively. Doesn't have any of them up.
He absolutely has nothing available to him.
I was going to say, good patience, but he just didn't have a choice.
That means now MV3 have the pressure. The second pull, not quite there, but I love what Jose Reito's looking for.
I love how he hits the one with no setup at all, and then he roots him and misses. I mean, you give and you take, I suppose.
They're going to dance around this FG a little bit more. Kinder Warrior to the left. Remember last time he had a solo ult in the 1v1 against Jox. Part of what was helping out Cold so much is that they were finding big ultimates from Kinder. He can't settle for anything less than 2 or 3 people right in the middle of a team fight to set up for Cynortas and mrsacx.
And it's got to be Beast that he's looking for now, because Beast is the only carry on MV3 that doesn't have his beads up, and that hopefully has been communicated.
Pull doesn't land either, and that was a whole crowd of targets, so he had to feel good about that one. Beast will drop the ultimate, which is the go button for MV3, and just line the target, pushing him right back towards the rest of the team. Rathatera brings him down. They also drop in the Argus, and now all of a sudden, OutCold Gaming doing a ton of damage. Cynortas has the Aegis, might need some help, but FataliTyxFire finds Beast.
JhoX trying to chase down this enemy mid laner, but Kinder Warrior flattens Yassi on that back line. Looks like Cynortas has actually escaped and will be safe, but Jose Raito might not be as lucky.
Jumping in for mrsacx, trying to catch back up, but not in time as JhoX finds Kinder Warrior. But now he's got to run FataliTyxFire once more. Unstoppable is Cynortas at this point, as he cannot be touched. A 3 for 2 in favor of OutCold Gaming. JhoX should be able to get away now that he's on Suku, but FataliTyxFire's not going to give up that easily.
No, I don't think so. FataliTyxFire won't have ultimate for a while. He should be out from this spot, but really nice fight by OutCold. It looks like it's going to be perfect for Mv3. That's without Just Lion doing a lick of damage that entire team fight.
Man, all Fatality does is just push forward, right? That's how my man is playing the Bellona as he chases down
solo lane.
Right, exactly. Loki's coming back in on the back end, though, with the Watery Grave. A great shield. Look how much that brought back from Cynortas to keep him healthy. But Loki's not done. They block.
Wow, that was so good.
The Kappa to keep it from catching up to Cynortas, but Loki still wants it.
I don't know how you're going to peel this Kuzenbo away. Ultimately, that he's going to be able to at least do a little bit. Cynortas does have speed.
Yeah.
Finally, mrsacx gets enough mana to use Belch of the Gods, and that'll end the chase pretty easily. As I was saying, that team fight is all without Just Lion doing a point of damage, and that's because FataliTyxFire and Kinder Warrior really split the team fight very, very well. They dive the enemy backline, and they kill Beast very early on. Again, he didn't have purification beads. I imagine that's what led to his early death, and Yassi just didn't get enough off in order to force Kinder Warrior and FataliTyxFire back. mrsacx, on the other hand, goes hand in hand with Cynortas all the way underneath the tier 2, giving him enough peel to get away from JhoX and Lokiberto.
We're definitely at the point of the game where neither one of these teams are able to win a fight convincingly enough to do anything on the back end of it. And it's been some parts where the plays have been good, some parts where the plays haven't been quite enough to clean them off. It's kind of been a bit of a hodgepodge here, but OutCold kind of had what you want in that last fight. The only problem I think was that Cynortas got pushed so far back, like you said, to almost to the tier 2 tower, essentially. If they can keep Cynortas right there in the thick of things, they can punish a little bit more off these grouping from Maverick.
Yassi doesn't have beads or Aegis for a little bit, and JhoX not without his purification beads, so there are some windows right now for OutCold if they can get in there, but they have to know that they're running out of time pretty quickly. And again, FataliTyxFire too far forward. Jose waiting for him on the other side. Knockups there, but FataliTyxFire still alive, and now everyone from Mv3 has walked right into the meat grinder.
Yeah, Jose gets blown up. Tier 2 Rod of Asclepius doesn't do much for you. 37 minutes into a game. Just Lion now with the double. JhoX is able to find Kinder, but a triple for Just Lion. The Freya now online. JhoX able to get away, though. Freya can't find the Quadra. Or yes, she can. Takes down Beast. And that's JhoX getting out of there. He's not going to be the Penta today, but that should be GG. It's just Maverick with just JhoX to defend up against 4.
It was the same idea as what happened earlier. FataliTyxFire too far forward. Let's dump everything to try and kill him. But that time, Mv3 just didn't get enough damage onto the enemy solo laner in order to finally bring him down. You have to commit Gravity Surge in that spot if you're JhoX. If you're getting Sylvanus ult, you have to use Gravity Surge to pull him back in and guarantee that kill. That's what happened last time. It didn't happen this time. And as a result, Mv3 end up losing the game.
JhoX trying to come in on the backside to find Cynortas, but it's just going to be too little too late. This is a foregone conclusion. This Titan is certainly going down. And you're right. I mean, they committed so much trying to take down FataliTyxFire, and it just wasn't quite enough, as even JhoX does fall. The Titan goes down, and OutCold will grab the victory. But for me, Raito got blown up too quickly in that last fight. He got removed from the game on a Sylvanus. 37 minutes in. I mean, he's got to be tankier than that, I think, at this point in the game.
I agree with you. And you have to just stack magic defense. Who's going to be doing the damage to you? It's Hera and it's Freya.
Yeah, Unboss had done little to nothing that game.
Exactly.
Right?
So just dump your gold into magical defense. You don't need a Rod of Asclepius. That's not what you're not there to heal everybody up a whole bunch. If you really want it later on, sure, buy a speed pot, get rid of your winged blade or whatever movement speed option you want. Get rid of that relic dagger and pick up the Asclepius then if we're 60 minutes in. At that point, he needed a Mantle of Discord or something in order to get people off of him. But it's really just the overcommit. His level of tankiness was irrelevant at that point because they had just used so much and put themselves in such a horrible position in order to kill one enemy solo laner, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, even if he doesn't die there, right, they've jumped in so much, it's unlikely they win the fight on the back end of that. But that was only game 1, a back and forth slugfest. Let's get it back over to the desk to break down what they saw.
Yeah, thanks so much, casters. Very interesting game between OutCold Gaming there and Maverick, mainly because some of the builds and how the game ended up. You said early game, Mavericks had to get off to a good start, and they did, but they didn't develop enough of a lead to really cause problems for OutCold.
The biggest lead they had that game was just in the kills alone. I don't really think that there was really a substantial gold lead by any means. The experience was all within about a level to a level and a half at most for some lanes, and it just felt like Mavericks did such a fantastic job setting up all those early game picks, all those early game push-ins, because they were being very aggressive, and I think that the mentality there was to look for a lot of those early game buff invades, but more often than not, they would find the pick and then they would just reset. And there's not really much benefit off of hard resetting from those picks. You have to establish some kind of buff invade pressure or some kind of map control, and it just never really felt like Mavericks had that.
And the one thing about OutCold Gaming's composition there as well, I mean, we saw Just Lion 7, 6, and 8 is what he ended on. Well, he got a quadra right at the end there. He had a troublesome time, didn't really use his relics as well as he could have used his ultimate defensively, but the one fight, Taco, where he doesn't get picked first is the fight they win massively and win the game.
That was the most important moment by far for OutCold. It's just like Agra broke it down with Finch. There was just a way too steep of an investment from Mavericks. I don't really know why they decided to all in everything onto Fatality, but that Bellona more than happy to be the sacrificial lamb to engage the team fight, because if you're blowing all those cooldowns onto one of the tankiest members that they have to offer on OutCold, well, you can expect that their carries are just going to follow it up. I think Just Lion accomplished his job there, but they do need to be, Just Lion especially, I think, needs to be a lot more proactive in activating those relics. I think that we saw way too much hesitation or just a lot of times just not getting them off in general in moments where I think they could have potentially saved his life.
Yeah, and Jose Ray as well on the Sylvanus game there. Went from max cooldown, not really very tanky. The casters mentioned it themselves, not much magical defense whatsoever. He had a lot of cooldown, but he didn't do any player damage, and he didn't do much healing either. He was really just after pulls all the time. It didn't seem to... He got some great pulls, but it didn't work out overall.
It looked cool, and that was about it. Sometimes it's nice to look cool on the Sylvanus, landing those pulls consistently, but I think it's a lot better to get that victory actually loaded up on your screen, and it definitely did not help. Mavericks just felt like they were paper. Their front line was just getting evaporated outside of the Kuzenbo, and that was only when he had the shell spikes available.